Well, hello everyone. Here to show you right here, talk about for requirements for what we can teach our children about requirements. If it's going to be talking about source of education as well as any source of courses, and then if it's college years, or if it's anything related to maybe from a job, or maybe anything related to any source of or what you call any source of work. There's particular manners of that, but you have right here, talking about, you say with Jaycee Dugard, and you have right here planet Earth right here, and with the moon, and with it's like the stars in space, and with the pine cone charm. But how many of us are going to maybe have children, and let's just say that if there are children, are going to maybe ask us at some point as to where that why is it that even the president of the United States, why is it that there are requirements, even though if you are paying for some of the courses, you're paying for, say, if it's all the courses or just a few of the courses, or if it's about as to where that if the certain plans that go by certain situations, stuff, something like that. But at the time we weren't to where that really that for what all that we learned out in the world, if it's maybe other countries too, that why is it that there are requirements, and what is the best answer that we can give to our children? Like say if the grandchildren were to ask, or maybe the cousins can maybe ask that why is it that there are requirements? And it seems like the best answer is usually to where that how are those faculty members and professors, anybody, how are you going to learn anything if there are not going to be any requirements? And let's just say that just like a bookmark, that with a bookmark, that without the bookmark, and then maybe you might lose your place. You might even not know exactly. I'm like, yeah, that for any source of requirements. And let's just say if college was like a club, so let's just say that there was any courses of a job, or maybe if it was college, if it was a club to where that you could take whatever that you wanted, and then at the time it seemed like that well, maybe you were not learning too much if you had all what you wanted, would you? But then if there were some courses that were required. But and if I can give an example too, to where they have right here's the moon right here, and then the pine cone, and you have right here's the stars. And we may think that the stars, are they supposed to be made out of like a gas, or if they're supposed to be made out of a solid ice? We've seen a lot of stars, very small stars, but are they ice or are they gas, made material? And as they have right here with the moon right here. So like for say with Jaycee Dugard, whenever she looked at the moon, and then right here with the pine cone charm, and then for planet Earth. But you weren't to where that the way I placed the name right here for Jaycee Lee Dugard right here, and with planet Earth, that how many of us have tried that before, to where that we're going to go ahead and write our name right up above planet Earth right there, just to say do like an artistic painting of planet Earth right there, and have it to where we write our name right there up on the top. And I think it is to where that that might look pretty good, but then later on, that maybe whenever you start to taking courses such as history courses, or maybe science classes, maybe in a higher level of education, that there are going to be requirements, and that the requirements are going to maybe be as to where that you need to add like a background, maybe use a template for a background, and they ask you to put the labels on there. So a lot of things that are going to be required to some of these courses that you take. And so really, what is the best suggestion about that, to where that the rules and the requirements? And it seems like the best answer really to give to our children, and anybody who asks, is that really that with the requirements, that they are basically teaching you something. And whenever it teaches you something, it basically means is that you may not use those skills every day whenever you're going to be if you do wind up getting a job, but in the near future you may not use these everyday skills, but then you might need those skills just to be able to pass those courses. So let's just say that with the requirements, though, that for how we talk to our children about is to where whenever something, whenever a skill becomes too hard, how do you handle that? What is the best answer we can give to our children? That's like for Jaycee Dugard to talk about, in her book, is that for freedom the first is that talking about her pets and all, but really that how can we really express our feelings about as toward it? Not everything that we do, are growing up, and as well as since we were a child, that growing up that we weren't gonna have everything easy, and like if anybody will want toward it, if everything was easy, then maybe you would not learn too much either, or maybe if you wanted to go ahead and learn something new, so. If anything, that you wind up taking a subject or maybe working a skill, and let's just say if it was pretty simple and easy, then you're likely to say that okay, what have I learned about doing this? And you're likely to say that and I know that if you're going to be in school that or maybe being trained on a job, that you may know some of the stuff or you may not know some of the stuff. So they might even tell you that, training, if you had to go maybe through about maybe 2 or 3 weeks of training, that some of the stuff that they train you with, and like say, well, I already know how to do this. Like, well, we're going to train just a little bit differently, maybe a little bit similar, but a little bit differently, but still between the same and indifferent, But really about the requirements basically are as to where what is needed, and then teaching you the basics, and teaching you all for, let's say, it's basically teaching you something, and so if anybody will want to work it, what do we do? How do we handle that to where our children are going to maybe ask the questions as to where that why is it that there are requirements, even though that these requirements though that you are paying for this or you're paying for that, and you make the choice toward this is what you want to major in, and at the time that you're like warned to where, oh, okay, well. Wait a minute, I didn't think that there was any rules. I didn't think that there were any guidelines. I did not really think that there were even requirements. And, it's something, related to like a policy matter. But still, though, that I guess what we can teach our children about the basic, about, the requirements, though, is that, that being an adult, I guess you're going to realize as to where that college is not like kindergarten, and I'm sure if most of us can remember back whenever we were in kindergarten, I mean it could have been from a long time ago too, but back whenever we were in kindergarten, that there was only so much maybe that you knew and so much that that you had to do, and that playing with building blocks and stories, and as well as coloring books and other sorts of activities, stuff like that. Snack time and all that, but still, though, that with college, though, that if any of our children maybe weren't to where if you're going to be in college, that you might notice a few things differently, and I could say the books, and then as well as about your study hours, and so it seems like that to where if any child were to maybe ask as to where that about requirements, though. And even though if you pass or fail, but still though that sometimes with most of our children, that how we handle that to where if you wind up failing a test or wind up failing a course, that how supportive can you be in knowing about that there were a few requirements missing, or it could have been about that you did very well and you did the best you could. But the way I think about it, though, is to where if anybody were to ask me is to where that why do you think why are there requirements, especially when we file our taxes? Why are there requirements? How come that you just cannot contact your the place where your money goes to? How come that you cannot just fill out a form maybe from the post office? Why are there requirements based on it getting something done? And it seems like the best answer is teaching you something, but let's just say though that by according to the state, and then of course according by the federal, by the IRS, that for how you file your taxes, that they are what you call these requirements. But really though, that with the requirements, for what is recommended with the requirements though, that you're likely thinking is to where that yeah, if everything were to be the same old process, then maybe that you would more likely say that are you ready to learn something new? So you're going to maybe ask that question. Am I ready to learn something new at some point? Are you ready to learn something new? Because if you do the same thing every year, I'm sure you're going to maybe ask that question as to where that, yeah, I would like to learn something new. And half the time it seems like that's basically what it means by the requirements. In order to be able to learn something new, that you just have to go by what you call the so far saying, is to where that you in order to be able to learn something new, that there is going to be requirements. So at the time that you may want to where that if you want to go and read a poem to somebody and thinking as to where that I would think that the poem or journal would be exactly what I wanted to say about it. But then there might be some requirements too, such as you got to have the heading and then the title and then the subtitle, and knowing about with the right audience attention, and then reflection, and all those other sorts of information for what you want to write about. And so you're likely warned to where that whenever we're going to be writing any source of journal, that say talk about the requirements. In order to be able to learn something new, it just seems like you got to follow those steps, and it's like knowing about what is required. So it seems like a lot of times that really, what are parents going to tell their children about why are there requirements? To teach you something new. And if you already know some of that stuff that is new, then they'll have their own ways of how they teach it. But really, I guess if that's really the best answer for what we can give to our children. But anyway, but talk about for our future, for planet Earth right there is the design I have made right there, along with the moon and then the stars in space and then the pine cone charm. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.